Welcome into the video, and today we have a very special guest on, Andrew Salciunas from 97.5 The Fanatic in Philadelphia, and today we're talking more Jaylen Brown trade. The third video I've done on this, it's just that big of a thing, and it's that terrible for Boston sports, but obviously you're in Philadelphia. How are you feeling after the trade?
Confused still, like wondering why your Boston Celtics did that. It makes no sense. I was on vacation, terrible timing for vacation because Philadelphia Sports Talk Radio, it's like never a day you can take off. You got to find time to take off, be with your family. And I walked out of Toy Story 5. We just finished. I have a 4-year-old son. So we just walked out, and my dad's like, oh, Jaylen Brown's going to the Sixers. My dad's in his 60s. My dad falls for a lot of fake AI Facebook posts a lot. And I'm like, that's not true. There's no way. And then I looked at my phone and I saw the amount of texts that I got. And my first question was, why would Boston do this? And then when I saw the package, I get it. You have Brad Stevens, who's a great executive and really smart and great with drafting. But are draft picks good enough to replace a superstar who you're going to try to draft anyway? You're going to try to draft Jaylen Brown with those picks that you got. I'm confused by it. I imagine you're confused by it. I imagine many of my fellow Sixers fans and your fellow Celtics fans are confused by it.
Definitely. What I don't understand is when you look at it, Jaylen Brown actually will have a lower cap hit next season because of the 15% trade kicker in Paul George's trade coming to the Celtics. So in that way, it makes no sense. If you're the Celtics, potentially it's because his contract's only a couple years. The Celtics were trying to get a lot more and they couldn't. And one other thing that I noticed, I did some digging because I was really curious about this, going into some more advanced analytics and stuff. I feel true shooting percentage is a good analytic. Jaylen Brown actually still had a higher true shooting percentage than Paul George. That's one thing people were discrediting Brown a lot for is he actually efficient? Is he actually statistically a good player? Well, he's better than Paul George's.
Yeah, the analytics are stupid. You're talking to the wrong guy if you want to break down analytics. I'm a caveman when it comes to it. I understand that they're important for sports. Like I'm not saying don't you should just ignore analytics all the time, but Jaylen Brown analytics schmanalytics. Like the guy carried the Celtics. Jason Tatum with his injury, the Celtics were supposed to be what, like a fifth, sixth, seventh seed. Obviously, you still had some good players with the Celtics, but they weren't supposed to be the second seed in the Eastern Conference. And Jaylen Brown got me there. Stop the Derek White was the MVP of the team. No, he was a nice player with the team. So was Peyton Pritchard. He was a nice player with the team. But it was all about Jaylen Brown. He was the lead guy. And so if we're doing the real reason, I mean, Brad Stevens said it. A lot of it had to do with the contract because Paul George was 2 years, Jaylen Brown was 3. And I know the Sixers were looking to trade we're hoping to trade one of Paul George or Joel Embiid because they really want to take that next step forward with Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe. Bob Myers, who's sort of running the show ahead of Mike Gansey, the president of basketball operations in Philadelphia. He believes that you can't win with 3 max contract players, or it's difficult these days. Brad Stevens said the same thing. You need to have depth in the NBA with the way the contracts are set up now in the new CBA. But you also got to keep great players. The Sixers were happy to move on from Paul George because at this stage of his career, he's developed into a good role player. Joel Embiid, if they were going to move him, they would have been happy because they would have moved on from a guy that's never really healthy. The Celtics moved on from a guy to help their cap and to help their money down the road that's still their star alongside Jason Tatum. That's why, like, I feel bad for I don't feel bad for you because I don't like Boston, but I do feel bad for you that you're going to talk about this Celtics team, and if it goes poorly, every single day you're going to question the decision to trade Jaylen Brown.
Well, everybody in Boston is questioning the decision, and I got to agree with you as well. No matter what the analytics say, doesn't matter. Jaylen Brown was the MVP of that Celtics team. That team played better when it was just Brown the lineup. Played worse with Tatum. Jaylen Brown was the one that was controlling things. Also, you got to think about it. Even the whole stats, whatever. I just was curious thinking about that. But no matter how you slice it, Jaylen Brown's going to be guarded by the best guys. So his stats obviously aren't going to be as good. And flat out, you said it perfectly. Paul George is a role player, and he's an old role player, an overpaid role player at 36. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, look, he was great against the Celtics in the playoff series. Paul George was, and when Paul George came back from his suspension and Joel Embiid came back from one of his multiple injuries, and you had the whole team together, you saw how it would work with Tyrese Maxey. I still think they need a true point guard. Jaylen Brown helps that out a little bit, a ball handler that is. But with Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, and Joel Embiid, you could see those three guys in a limited amount of time play really well together. But when Paul George was the guy, when Joel Embiid was out, Paul George was not carrying a team. So Jason Tatum, would you be surprised if he misses some games next year? I wouldn't be. I mean, that's pretty much the NBA at this point. Paul George has not been the player that he once was, where he could win you the game, where he is the focal point of the offense. He had a big night for the Sixers during the regular season this year, where he tied the franchise record for most threes in a game. So he can still shoot. Like, that can still happen. But that happened with Maxey and Embiid on the court. When Maxey and Embiid aren't on the court, Paul George isn't that same efficient player. So good luck to Boston. If they think this was the championship move, I would imagine Brad Stevens was thinking more so this is the move that can get us back in a year or two and not necessarily 2027.
I could definitely see that if they feel that for whatever reason Tatum and Brown wouldn't work. Doesn't make any sense to me because it worked once. They're still in the primes. If anything, Brown's the one that played better last year than Tatum. So I'm really puzzled by it.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's going to be one of those moves where Brad Stevens will either come out of this looking like a genius, which he is smart. Like, as much as I don't like the Boston Celtics, I give credit where credit's due. Brad Stevens is a mastermind and he knows what he's doing. But if this bites him in the rear end, this is going to be one of those moves where not only will Celtics fans question Brad Stevens, but you know what this sets up for Jason Tatum, right?
Oh
There's
yeah.
already the question marks of Jason Tatum. Is he really truly the guy in Boston? He might be the guy that's marketed more, but he's always had Jaylen Brown alongside him. If Jason Tatum's not the same player, and oh, by the way, he might not be because he's going to be the focal point for defenses now moving forward because it's not going to be Paul George. Now you're putting Jason Tatum in a rough spot too.
Well, I will say Jason Tatum is a very solid defender. That is one thing. I do believe Tatum can defend
Mhm.
perfectly fine. He gets overshadowed by guys like Derek White, Marcus Smart before him, but Tatum himself, he's a very solid defender in his own right, but it just is an extremely puzzling thing, and you said it perfectly. Brad Stevens, he's either going to look like an absolute genius. I like to give guys the benefit of the doubt, especially a guy like Brad Stevens. I remember a couple years ago he had the Derek White trade. I was like, what's going on there? But turned out to be great. Obviously, this is not the Derek White trade. This could end up being the next Luka Doncic trade. And I, as someone from Boston, I really hope it's not, but there's a chance it could be. There's also a chance that Paul George could be incredible, set up Jason Tatum perfectly. Pritchard could take a big leap, and the Celtics end up putting on a masterclass show. I don't know how they're going to. One thing I've just thought of this: could Paul George and Jason Tatum gel better because Paul George is a role player? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Paul George is gonna be off ball for the whole season. So it's gonna be the Jason Tatum show. It's gonna be the Peyton Pritchard show. It's gonna be the Derek White show. Like those, Paul George is not a ball handler at this point of his career. He hit probably on two hands I can count the amount of shots where he created his own 3-point shot. He's actually pretty good down low. He's good in the post still. Like he can still do some of those things. He's now become a little bit of a crafty veteran, but his 3-point game is the pick and pop at this point. So if you're looking at it that way, Jason Tatum, there won't be a question as to who's got the ball. Whereas over the years, it was, all right, is this Tatum shot? Is it Jaylen Brown shot? But were you complaining where they were hosting the trophy when they won the NBA championship? I don't think that you were.
Exactly. It worked out. Oftentimes, Tatum was the one, anyways, taking that shot when he was healthy. But definitely, I think it could not end up being terrible if, since Paul George is going to be off ball, he could be a catch and shoot guy. Still
Mhm.
doesn't make sense. Still extremely puzzling. But there's a chance that it doesn't end up being some terrible Luka Doncic type trade. Now, the one thing is, your Philadelphia 76ers, you never know if LeBron's going. LeBron James could happen.
Yeah, look, I am praying for it. I'm begging for it. Fun story. I was live on the air in Philly in 2018 when he picked the Lakers. I was live, like the decision part 7 happened where he picked the Lakers, and I immediately called my boss. I was like, "Look, my show ends in 30 minutes, and we're about to go to national radio. You cool if I stay on for 2 more hours?" And he goes, "Yeah, go for it." I was on the air till like 2 o'clock in the morning, and the phone lines were just lit up because people were so devastated that LeBron
Mhm.
didn't pick the Sixers. And here we are 8 years later, and we're once again talking about LeBron James. And even though I didn't totally feel it was logical in 2018 for LeBron, it makes a hell of a lot more sense now, right? Because he is 41 years old. The question that he's going to have to ask himself, literally look in the mirror and ask himself, does he want to truly contend for a championship? Because if he does, I believe Philadelphia is the best part for him, best place for him, because he fits right into a roster with Jaylen Brown, Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, and Joel Embiid, and he can continue to be this veteran facilitator. He's a great passer. He can run the point forward for the Sixers. But if that's not what his heart is telling him, is his heart telling him, I want to play with Steph Curry for a year or two? It would be great as a basketball fan. I'm a Sixers fan, but I'm also a big NBA fan. So I would watch a lot of Warriors basketball games as a basketball fan to see Steph and LeBron play. But are they winning a championship? I'll tell you right now, they're not winning a championship. He could go back to Cleveland. If he wants to go back to Cleveland to end his career where it started, I can't blame him. He's 41 years old. He's already a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's made billions of dollars thanks to his career in the NBA. If he wants to have the sentimental end to his career in Cleveland, go for it. I won't blame him for that. I won't blame him for the decision to go to Golden State. But if he goes to any of these places and sits at the podium and says, I came here to win a championship, I think he'd be fooling himself. I think his best place to win a championship, and this is all bias aside, I'm a basketball fan first, is Philadelphia.
I could definitely see that. That could be an absolutely scary roster. Thank you so much for coming on.
Dude, thank you so much for having me. Keep up the great work. I know that you had my co-host, John Kincaid, on recently. That's great. And keep it up. I appreciate you having me on today.
All right. Bye-bye.
See you, Sam.